Hello, this is Professor Michael Labasi, and we're here looking at investigating email crimes. This is for my Introduction to Computer Forensics course at St. Clair College. So at the time of this recording, this is the CHFI content from EC Council, and this is Module 13. This, of course, is a summary video. Again, at the time of this recording, this is Topic 13, Investigating Email Crimes. So to take a look at this itself, as we look at the topics throughout the rest of the course, they're much more granular, but they will use a lot of the same structure as the forensics process in topic 2 and topic 3. Um, that being, if it's a criminal case, handling of the original evidence, including hashing, bag and tag, all that stuff, evidence log and how it's stored could be applicable because if it's going to be admissible in a court of law, you might need to make sure that's followed. And the chapter does talk about that. I might skip over that and just focus on what we're looking at is more granular, is specifics of these different things. So like we talked about with dark web, we saw that it has to do with looking for like installed Tor browser and maybe the artifacts of that use. Database, of course, logs, and so when it comes to email crimes, we're going to look at some specifics for that. But keep that in mind. Always should be in the back of your mind is that the process for how you how you handle the evidence is very important. So, okay, with that in mind, we'll take a look at what the chapter talks about. And one of the things you need to understand, of course, is just have some basic understanding of the email system itself. It could be for the case in general. It could be just in general has some general knowledge between the client server architecture, or if it's a central server that's used for mail. And we'll look at some of those components here in a second. That'll be very important when you approach the case too. As we've seen with the other ones, like for databases, for example, have that background understanding. So um, it's actually on the slide. I had some stuff here for this. So there are some components to look at. The mail user agent. Think of this as the app. The transfer agent itself, as it accepts the mail, and then we have the mail delivery agent, store and deliver email, and those come over different types of protocols. And so communication types, simple mail transfer protocol, SMTP, and I did put down the port numbers here. This is probably in the textbook too. This could be good if you are going to combine this with some network analysis, so you can see communications from that client's IP address over certain port numbers. Um, if that login is available, possibly there's a PCAP file of that traffic. So, and these work together, and we'll probably see that here in the slide deck. So there you go. So the big thing is this, talking about the mail user agents. Let's go back for a second here. Uh, Again, understand when the case as you approach it, you might need to look at how the data is stored for the specific mail user agent. So in this case, Outlook, probably one of the largest ones here, of course, besides webmail. It's a little different, and that would be more the IMAP side, um, but there are some things to consider here. Of course, being the Outlook PST file. So you can have them on Microsoft site. And the reason we got the site up is textbook and the lab will have you use certain files. I think you're provided the files for the lab, the PST files. And the textbook will talk about the locations. These can change over time, so it's always good to be aware of what version of mail user agent is being used, what operating system, and maybe get an idea of the current information for the file locations. So if it's a Mac, there's something to consider too, and I'm glad this is up here. Where it's held, and typically that is iCloud, but also there are local mail settings. Here we see SMPT for the outgoing mail server, and so on. So iCloud is a large place where we keep for Mac, but also you can see, and I'm glad this is here, is it's more than just I have Outlook and it's used for my work mail. It's a very good chance if this is a workplace incident response, then it's pretty straightforward, and usually that's tightly controlled by the mail and network admin. But if this is a consumer, maybe if it's a suspect, You can have different mail services work with the mail user agent, and this works also even with Gmail, I believe. I know I've gone before now. Gmail fetched my Yahoo email back in the day. Um, so you can have this cross-talk between different mail user agents. So, so keep that in mind. Look at the configuration of the mail of these mail user agents. Um, you might find they also communicate with certain web-based ones, and that might change in a criminal case. Of course, any subpoenas for data files and so on. If it's being held standalone, you should be able to have those local mail here. So understand those right there, and then of course the components, and this is where it comes in. If it's a POP3 or SMPT, POP3 typically this will download the emails to the user hard disk. That's pretty important to recognize that. That's what you're looking for is it's going to go ahead and get the email and fetch it. Um, this is where the mail is being sent to, so that's good to know. Their support numbers are good. Um, it's good to know the SMTP server in case someone deletes and removes their sent mail. Or some reason maybe the agent is set up not to store the sent mail, which is pretty slim chance, but you might be able to fetch outgoing mail from these servers. So we see that's more than just it's more than just a client. Yeah, if I can do a client right, we got the client itself and the server. Um, we think it might be on the client, everything we need, but there's a good chance that the server itself, for example, sent mail, there could be some on the sent mail folder here, but if it's deleted, there still could be out here. And also the logs of the mail itself. That would be the metadata layer, and we'll look at that in a second. So again, as we look at of course, an IMAP. IMAP being probably the central repository, this keeps everything on the server, and this sort of synchronizes between the client and server. Um, and so what you're seeing on the client is sort of a portal into the webmail. And we see this a lot with web-based Gmail, things like that. So, and then understand the process of how it works. The mail transfer agent talks to the mail, you know, SMTP, what protocol to what agent, and mail delivery agent. This is going to help you just help you trace as you just determine what servers there are, what the protocol was used, um, what type of process was it, a POP3 or IMAP. Um, you can trace the servers. You might be able to get evidence from those servers with a subpoena for a criminal case. So now we move from the actual understanding the overarching parts of the email is to the email itself. And here we see, of course, pretty straightforward. Signatures something you might not see, but definitely is the header. That's going to be one of the main ones, the header and the body. Now, with some mail, it may not have, it could be, it's might be encrypted, but you always can still get sometimes header information. So this is that metadata. We can see who's been talking to who, even though we don't know the conversation. We can see um, it's possible that our suspect has been talking to someone that was not talked about in interviews or seen before. It could be a break in the case per se to find that third party to help get more information. So and that's used a lot is that metadata. So as we approach here, we look at this, and I'm skipping a bunch of slides, of course, especially when we look at the actual tools used, and I have some stuff we'll look at for that. But also think about how the email is being used. And we've seen this before. What is the tool? Is it a part of a crime? Is it the victim of a crime per se, the computer? And same thing with email. Is it typically used in crimes committed by sending emails, phishing, spam, and so on, um, or is it used supported by emails, the crime, hence identity fraud, cyber stalking, other nefarious activities? So and that's going to be important to understand that when you approach this case too, because it might mean if someone's using email to maybe organize criminal activity, they're going to maybe stomp the email down, try to hide it, or use other ways to hide hide their tracks. Whereas if they're sending emails out, if someone's a victim of an email crime, then this should be available. You should hopefully find those emails, even if they were deleted. So, of course, the steps itself here. This is a nice little overview slide. Seize the computer email accounts. Acquire the email data, examine the email messages, look at the headers. We'll look at that in a second. Analyze the headers, and then recovering deleted email messages. I would add also look at attachments. That's something to also look at because a lot of times attachments themselves can be encoded, and they are part of just a large encoding. You can decode those with a different process. Now, of course, if we have web-based email, if you have the credentials the suspect, and then that's of course that's great. You can get in and see it. Otherwise, um, there are ways. If you have credentials, there's Google Takeout. You synchronize with a third-party client, and of course, you might need to involve them. And again, the large providers of email, Gmail, for example, Google has ways to cooperate with law enforcement upon providing messages. So and then we break the message down. This is pretty straightforward. Just things to keep in mind. The subject itself, the sender email address. Now, this might not be their real email address. We'll look at the header information. This could be a spoof email address. And of course, the body. Things to look for there could be hyperlinks. If they are, of course, as we know, this being the victim of a phishing attack, um, then of course we have a link that says go to my bank when the link actually goes to someone else. And also attachments. So again, don't forget the attachments. And if the attachments have been zipped and the zip file's been password protected, it might not be scanned for anything. A lot of new email services will scan attachments or check for maybe vulnerable or suspicious attachments. But if the file is password protected, it might not be able to open that file up. So okay, so the headers themselves. This is a great way to actually get into the meat of the email and look if someone's being spoofed. Look at the information of the origin and what's been retrieved, and then we have some steps for that. So of course, the header itself, timestamps are going to be a huge deal. And you see this is UTC time on this example here. So the from, again, we see this is possible. It might be forged. What we see in the from is might not be it, but there's ways to trace that down. And the email ID of the recipient. This message ID is very important. This can be used to fetch a specific email. Again, it can be from Yahoo, for example, in this case. And of course, we have the email, the ID before contains a timestamp of the email. So there's something called the RFC 2822, which is sort of the standard for emails. If you didn't have that, of course, you probably have Apple and Microsoft have their own email formats, and you can only email other Microsoft employees. You can imagine the pain that would be. So, important thing is this Unix epoch time here format. I think we saw that before, but look into that, do some research on that. And also, we have the fully qualified domain name, mail.yahoo.com. It's not just yahoo.com. Subject again is just subject line, but it could be important to look for that. And then MIME type. Now, this is for non-text attachments. And so the MIME type will tell us, and you should see it's a MIME type, and you'll see a big block of just hexadecimal probably, or a binary that can be used to actually recreate the attachment. So, um, and further on here, we see there's further header information here. We look at the actual headers, and this is called we look at header analysis here, and I actually have a pretty good. This is actually a link in the course shell, but I also have this in PDF. We'll look at that in a second. And these are called the X header extensions. So um, look at these, understand these. These are the things you want to look for. Delivered to, it says X apparently to. If it went to many recipients, the X mailer is the email client, and the originating IP address. That's fantastic. So if someone says they're from a certain company, but you could take that IP address and you can look it up. You can look up the IP address and see it doesn't match. So There are some things in place, something called DMARC that is not all companies use. It's sort of like what we see for web browsers. When you go to a web browser, right, you go up here, you get a certificate. And the certificate says, yes, this is elearnsinclair.edu, been certified. The DMARC is a way to sort of certify that, yes, this email did come from who they said it came from. So that's called DMARC. If it's in play, it should uh, help you not have to go through and look for this type of mismatch here. Doesn't mean you shouldn't, don't distrust it, but realize if it DMARC's being used by the client, if they're under attack, or there was, in the case of spoof email sent, that it might help limit that. So, but anyways, close this out here. So email header itself. So this is something that is linked. This is a great way to look at email forensics. This is looking at here you see, so you look at full header. Here we see, of course, the receive from, return path, the X received. Here we see the IP address with it, and this is a great breakout. And actually, you can see the attachment here too. Now I know it was the next page here, unfortunately. Um, Transfer encoding. We should have a MIME type with this here, but this is actually base 64 encoded. I can tell by the equal sign there. Um, so you should be able to. There's MIME version content transfer encoding. So there's the encoding now. It could have been that it was encrypted, the body or not. But again, so there's server investigation and device investigation. That's a great way to look at it. And we have these sort of center email fingerprints. I like the way they put that inside there. And these are those to X headers. So we look at this. Um, in the lab, you will actually be able to look at some of these items here. Here we actually install tools. So in this case, there's a tool we look at here. This is tools.email viewer. And actually, this is great. I've actually downloaded this for my own use on some side work. This is a free tool which allows you to go and just break out and look at the hex properties, message header, MIME types, and so on. Helps break out those different parts of the email. In this case, it looks like we attached to may attach to an email file. In this case, it could be a PST file or just file itself or .eml file. So, and the lab will take you through this, and you can actually walk through and see the message ID. And this is the message header tab, so I just want to show that. I think that's a fantastic thing you'll do in the lab. Um, Again, this is a very handy little utility here, tool I've used before. And again, it's because it allows you to go and break out this stuff um, from the noise of a large email with both body, headers, subjects, all the MIME type information. This allows you to go ahead and, in this case, there's MIME here, and see this separately. So don't want to walk through this here. Um, But yeah, here we can see there's attachments, and this will actually show the attachments. Should show them laid out. Now there are other tools like this too. Like what's my IP address? Um, I use a utility a lot. Um, uh, DNS tools. So I get for not having it open. It's a great tool I use a lot for viewdns.info. Here we go. So this viewdns.info. This has a bunch of ways you can put in an IP address finder. Of course, you can do this for the command line. There's ways to do this, and it's lookup, trace route, and so on. Good old ping. But you can find information from IP address, and there's actually email stuff here too. There's reverse MX. Now, MX are mail servers. That's the lookup for mail. So you can use this to help reverse lookup mail servers, um, as well as reverse DNS lookup and so on. So your email lookup right here. Some of these are pretty handy, some are not. Here's a decoder. It's fantastic. So again, I don't have any affiliation with this site. I've used it for years. It's a great little sort of um, great bundle of tools here that's got all kinds of information. They have products you can buy, but I've never purchased them. But and I'm here to have you purchase them. I just want to show you this main page. Very handy tool to do this, and it has some of the tools you will see um, similar to the tools you see mentioned in the lab itself, which we see here. So look up an IP address and so on. Um, Again, email DOS. This is a great tool, centralops.net. You can actually put this inside here and you get information about the. This is a great little tool to validate the this address itself is correct. So that's really it for the summary here. The chapter itself dives into some of the stuff about PST files and the OST files, things like that. Again, I didn't show the slides for that. I didn't bring up that content. Please look it over. Make sure you understand it. I also want to pull out the information about the headers and specifically the X header analysis. That's a great way, and then some tools to use during this analysis. And overall, of course, always remember this is a criminal case, like that slide shows. You know, this step one. If it's a criminal case, there's going to be make sure it's part of the warrant. Don't pull someone's email off a phone that's not part of the search warrant. That's going to be inadmissible. Um, So understand that again, the scope of the search warrant should be all devices owned by the owner. Um, but maybe that search warrant is real specific. It's only for a certain laptop. And so you start gathering information or evidence off of non-warrant items. This is going to be a problem with that, with admissibility. So, and of course, how that's handled. So we're under that umbrella. Remember that, and remember we can use this way to help us understand the email system. And then with that in mind, you have the proper focus on what files to fetch and then the process to go and analyze those files. So that's really it for this one. Again, thanks for watching. And that was a quick little review of investigating email crimes for computer forensics. Thank you.